Shalom Aleichem. We continue today with our study in Pirkei Avot. We are still in chapter 3 and we will begin today from Mishna number 16. And now it's Rabbi Ishmael. We are going to hear what Rabbi Ishmael says. Who is Rabbi Ishmael? A great sage. He's the famous Rabbi Ishmael ben Elisha, the high priest. A great man. So many stories about him. He was the disciple of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Hananiah, who saved him from captivity when Rabbi Ishmael was very young. He was taken in captivity by the Romans. And then Rabbi Yehoshua ben Hananiah redeemed him with money. And then he taught him Torah. So he became a great man as a disciple of the greatest sages of the generation of the Mishna. He was also Talmid Chaver. He was a friend with Rabbi Akiva. Not Talmid Chaver, I'm sorry. He was a friend to Rabbi Akiva, even though the Talmud is replete with the disputes and between Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Akiva in matters of halakha. Rabbi Ishmael was known for his straight kind of thinking. No question about it, one of the greatest names. Unfortunately, he also died with the 10 famous rabbis, Asara Haruge Malchut, who were killed by the Romans. Our sages said even though Rabbi Ishmael had the possibility to use Hashem Amforash, the name of God, in the Kabbalistical way, and he could have saved himself, but he didn't, so that he accepted upon him the same destiny as his brothers in that time, which was after the destruction of the temple, at the time when there were still many persecutions by the Romans, by Adrianus, the Caesar, and so forth. Much to say, but as we said, we have to restrict ourselves only to explanations that are as short as possible, and yet, please listen to them. There is something there that is true. At the same time, we have to keep in mind that every saying that we study in Pirkei Avot could have many different kinds of explanations. All of them are true. Most of the time we tell you only one of them. I mean the most explicit one, the one that we call Pshat, the simple one. Rabbi Ishmael Omer, Heve kal lerosh, ve'noach letishchoret. We have two words here that require explanation. Rosh, which means usually the head. So here it could mean the authority. Or it could mean the head, which means a person who is who is honored by everyone. He's a leader. So be yielding and be nice to him. I mean, lower yourself. It's another kind of teaching that teaches us to be humble. Hevel kal lerosh, be easy with people who are higher than you, which means you have to respect them and honor them. Give honor to one who deserves it. Right? Do not find all kinds of ways how to belittle a person, to find excuses that please you and your interest in order to find something that is negative in another person, especially in a person who is known as Rosh, the head of something, either in the authorities or in the spiritual world, I mean in the Torah world. At the same time, ve'noach letishchoret. Tishchoret also is a name that is uncommon in the Hebrew vernacular, but it means here a person who is old. That's the simple meaning. An elderly, so be easy with him, be pleasant. Be pleasant with the young, and at the same time, you have to be yielding to a superior. That's Noach Larosh. You have to yield, which means you have to give up your own honor before someone who is more honorable than you. That's part of it, is being humbleness. At the same time, v'noach latishchoret. I'm sorry, tishchoret means a younger man, a younger person. A younger person, we have the tendency to always discount what he says. He's too young. No, you have to be very sure that you are pleasant to him also. Even a child, when you talk to him, be as pleasant as possible. The more pleasant you are with a child, the more influence we'll have over him. However, if you say something that displeases him, it could be wrong, it could be right. But one has to make every kind of right in the most pleasant possible way. At the same time, let's say, since we are restricted, with the elderly, you have to yield. With the person who requires honor, you have to yield. With a younger man, you have to be pleasant. That doesn't mean that you are under the obligation to give honors to a younger man, but to be pleasant with him. That's also part of respect a human being. But at the same time, Rabbi Ishmael says, "Veheve mekabel et kol adam besimcha." Accept every kind of person, whether he is old or young, ahead or less than that, all of them, receive them with a happy face. Like elsewhere it says, "Veheve mekabel kol adam besever panim yafot." You have to always welcome every person with a beautiful face. But Rabbi Israel Salanter, I would like to inject here a very important message. Rabbi Israel Salanter says, Sever, panim, yafot, those are three requirements when it comes to the relationship between man and his fellow man. When you receive him besever. Let's say you talk to somebody whose wisdom is not the greatest, and he's talking to you. You cannot belittle him. Not only that, you have to give him the impression that you respect his kind of thinking. That's called sever. And then the second requirement is panim. You have to look at him. Don't talk to him while not looking at his face. It's terrible to do that. I myself, long time ago, I did rebuke a very famous and great rabbi, whom I respect very much. And yet when he came to say hello to many rabbis who were assembled in one single place, he didn't look upon them. When he arrived to me, I said to him, why don't you look at every person? Every person that you greet, you must look at him. He frowned at me, but later he forgave and he accepted. So hevi mekabelet kol ha'adam b'simcha. The third requirement is yafot. When you look at a person, make sure your expression is pleasant, is nice. Don't give him a frowning face. Don't give him a face that, a person is quite intelligent. Every person is intelligent. Intelligent enough to know what's in your heart just through by looking at your face. Our sages said, why do we call the face in Hebrew panim? Because the word panim comes from the word pnimiyut, the internal system of the person. You know what's inside his heart just by looking at his face. So therefore you make sure that your face is pleasant. This way he doesn't think that you hate him or even or worse or less than that. Be pleasant and happy with everyone. It does not matter who. Noach larosh kal lerosh ve'noach letishchoret. A very difficult kind of statement, but we did the best we can for now. Now we have Mishnah number 17. And the sayings will be from Rabbi Akiva, the friend of Rabbi Ishmael, the previous rabbi. Who doesn't know about Rabbi Akiva? I need hours to talk about Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva also, by the way, he was the teacher of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the man of the Zohar, the man of Kabbalah. Rabbi Akiva himself He was the son of converts, and yet he grew up to be the greatest rabbi in his generation and probably in all the generations. He was known to have been the best of the best. And of course, his end was tragic. He died by the hands of the Romans in a terrible way. And yet he gave his soul by saying, Shema Israel Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. In the word Echad, his soul departed his body. And all his life, he was a teacher of tremendous messages. Next week, we are going to celebrate the Hilula of Lag BaOmer. And of course, this is the day, special day for Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was the disciple of Rabbi Akiva. We cannot forget who is Rabbi Akiva. Everyone knows the story of Rabbi Akiva. I mean, at the age of 40 years, he was still a person who didn't know much. He was an ignoramus. He was the shepherd of Kalba ben Sabua, the richest man in the people of Israel then, approximately 1900 years ago. After the destruction of the temple by just a few years, and his wife, known as Rachel, became very famous because she was the cause for Rabbi Akiva to become what he became. And he himself admitted, when he was received by thousands of people that came to honor him, who doesn't know the name Rabbi Akiva? And he said to them, all my Torah and your Torah comes only because of my wife Rachel. He says, Sechok vekalut rosh margilim et adam la'erva. Again, we have words that could be explained in different ways. Sechok means laughing. It could be smiling, but it means more laughing, which means a discussion that is meant to be for laughs. Vekalut rosh, a person who doesn't think much. So we say he is kal berosho, kal da'at, a person who is not very wise. Sometimes a person behaves in a way that we call it kalut rosh, lightness of the head, or lightheadedness. It's not good, because it could lead, it's very possible that it could lead a person who is used to this kind of life to always laugh and always to behave with lightheadedness, without thinking much about the result of his actions. Margilim et adam la'erva. It could bring a person to immorality. To things that are really immoral. Erba usually forbidden women. And that's obvious, and everyone understands that. He also says, Masoret seyag la Torah. What is a Masoret? Masoret, the word Masoret means tradition. We have received not only the written Torah, but we have also the oral Torah. In the oral Torah, we have what we call Masoret, a tradition that we believe was also received by Moses at the mountain of Sinai, but it's not written in the Torah. There are hints in the Torah, such as words like Rabbi Ovadia of Bartenura brings in his commentary. Look at it. And he says that we have many words in the Torah that are not written according to the grammar, to the Hebrew grammar exactly. Like Sukkot, once it's written with Vav, once it is written without Vav. And also the holidays, it says Otam, Asher Tikreu Otam Bemo'adam. In fact, it's written without Vav, which means you could read it Atem. From this we understand that it is the Jewish people who decides when is the holiday. So that's a great power that God gave to the sages of Israel to be able to tell us when are the holidays and to decide when the holiday of Pesach or the holiday of Sukkot or Shavuot will begin. That's something that is not written in the Torah. It was given to us by what we call Masoret, a tradition. And that we have many, many examples throughout the Talmud, And practically it is part of the oral Torah that is necessary for Jewish survival. He says, Masoret seyag la Torah. You see, the Masoret, the tradition, it's a fence around the Torah. If you make sure you keep the laws of our sages, if you make sure you accept the tradition that was given by our sages, then you also make sure that you will keep the Torah itself. The written Torah will be definitely kept. Right? It's because it's like you have a fence around it. So automatically what's inside is kept and well protected. Right? There is much more to say about this. But again, we have to continue. Ma'aserot seyag la'osher. Now he says here the ma'aserot. What is the ma'aser? This is the tithes. When a person, we are obligated by the Torah to give 10% of our income to the poor, to the Kohen at the time, in the old time, today to the poor. It's very important that one should give ma'aser. Our sages even made it even more than that. That one should try to do his best to give 20%. That's called chomesh. The Vilna Gaon says if you are sure that you give 20% of your income, then you will surely become rich. And our sages said, regarding what it says in the Torah, aser te'aser. The Torah says, give the tithes, give the 10%. And it puts it in such an expression, a double one. Aser te'aser. From this our sages learned by tradition, aser al menat shetit'asher. You give 10%, so one day you will become rich. By the way, this is something that has been proven without any doubt. And of course, there are exceptions for which there are reasons, but most of the cases, people who always were precise with that, the 10% and the 20%, became rich. I have my own examples that I know many people like this. So he says, Ma'aserot seyag la'osher. You give ma'aser, that's a protective fence to make you become rich. I would like to inject also another thought, that not only that, if all your life you give ma'aser without thinking about the riches or anything, so you will become rich and you will preserve your wealth, because you have something that protects your wealth, your money. And what is that fence? The ma'aser. And then he says, Nedarim seyag la perishut, which means vows are also a fence, a protective fence for prishut. Prishut means abstinence. Usually prishut, like we find in the book of the Ramchal, in Mesilat Yesharim, the path of the just, and he brings Sha'ara Prishut. He has a whole chapter regarding Prishut. What is Prishut? It means separation. It means even in matters that could be allowed. There's nothing against it. And yet you have to be careful not to exaggerate. I will give you an example. Only to abstain from something that even could be okay. For example, to eat too much. The Torah doesn't say to eat too much is forbidden. But one has to know, don't eat too much. That's called, you separate yourself from something that is not advisable, and yet it's allowed. So these could have many, many examples. Usually the Prushim, those people who abstained from doing many things, are known to be very pious and God-fearing persons. So he says, Nedarim, the vows, are seyag la prishut. I mean, you need a protection in order to make you behave with what we call prishut, with abstinence, right? So what is it going that you take to help you, to protect you, to really be a person of prishut, a parush? Nedarim. Sometimes you have no choice. You have to make a vow. By the way, a vow is very serious, because once you make a vow, you have to keep it. Otherwise, it's very dangerous for the family. I don't want to say more about this. But you make a vow. especially a vow that is in public, on the Torah, for example. You promise, you make a vow. That's a vow when you give a donation, right? You have to pay. Otherwise, it could be costly. Therefore, he says, you find it difficult, perhaps, to be parush, to do things that are even above what is required from you. If that's the life you want, which is extraordinary and very good, beneficial to the soul, then you could even use sometimes to make a vow. Let's say you find it difficult for you to get up in the morning, at dawn to pray in the morning. So you say, I'm still allowed to get up much later than that and to go to the synagogue. Well, what's the big deal? But he says that's not the best way. The best way is to do it the right way. And the right way is to be in the synagogue for the prayer at dawn. Difficult. So what do? If it is too difficult for you, you're allowed to make a vow. Because only provided you are very careful with vows. If you are sure that you will never be able to say a vow and not to keep it, chas v'shalom, God forbid. But if you are sure to keep a vow, you are allowed to make a vow. Like, for example, you make a vow that you will get up every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's a good vow. If provided on condition that you will keep it. Today, by the way, the poskim say don't be hasteful to do that. Because we are not anymore sure of what we are doing. And therefore it's better not to make any vows, because you are liable not to keep your vow, and then you're trouble from here and there. Then he said, Seyag lachochma shtika. There is also, for wisdom, there is a protective fence. Silence. To be silent brings more wisdom. You have more time to think. People who talk too much, they don't have much to think. Talking too much is terrible. Our sages said in Masechet Kiddushin, Asara kabim siha yardu la'olam. There are 10 levels of speech, of talking, that came down to the world. Women have taken 9 of that. Well, that's already in nature. It's not terrible. And 1 is for the rest of the world. And there are commentaries who say that even in the last one that was given to men, even that was taken by women. Now, I'm saying this with all the respect that we owe to women. We have to honor them non-stop, no question about it. At the same time, we know that they have always that pleasure to talk. Our sages, for example, brings a story of the great Gaon, the Rav, in the time of Rav Shmuel in Babylon. Rav was a man of Torah, 100%. And yet what he was with his wife at night. There is a certain testimony by Rav Kahana, his disciple, who heard his Rebbe, the man who does not waste a minute. And yet when he came to his wife at night, and yet they were old already, right? And yet he spoke with his wife, he talked with her, things of no value for a long time. And his disciple was amazed. He said, how is it possible? He's wasting time? No, because it was with a good intention, to make his wife feel good. She wants to talk with her husband. So he wanted to give her that pleasure. You have no idea how much God loves that. I think so. So anyway, if one, like Shammai says, Emor me'at va'aseh harbe. Say little, you will do plenty of things. Because if you talk too much, you are not going to do much. So of course, Seyag lachochma. You want to increase your wisdom? Keep quiet. Allow me to interject here by saying another chidush. There is a statement by our sages in a midrash called Mishle Chachamim, where it says, Imad dibur kesef shtika zahav. If talking is silver, money, then being quiet is gold. Wait a minute. By the way, there is a similar statement in Masechet Gittin, shtika betre. I mean, one word costs that much money, but double that kind of money is the value of keeping quiet. Okay, but the question is, wait a minute. You said that imad dibur kesef. Talking is silver, which is good. Silver is very good, right? So what is talking? Talking what? If you discuss divrei Torah, that's gold. Cannot be less than keeping quiet. So how can you say dibur kesef? Shtika zahav. Keeping quiet is gold. Versus talking, which is silver, like talking Torah. How is it possible? That means you have to tell me that we're talking about bad kind of talk, like evil gossip, lashon hara. Is that to that we can refer to it as silver, as something good, even though it does not compare with gold? It's impossible. I did explain that according to a certain statement brought in the Talmud in Masechet Baba Batra, and there it says, "Le'olam lo yeshabeach Adam, אפילו לא ידבר אדם אפילו בשבחו, שמתוך שבחו יבוא לידי גנותו." One should be careful not to even praise his fellow man, because from praising he could come to something that is not so praiseworthy. Example, you want to talk about someone and you say, wow, how beautiful is this man. He has such good things, he's charitable, good-hearted and everything. But then you end up saying, I'm sorry that he has one trait of character that is terrible. Oh, you already fall in a trap of lashon hara, of evil talk. That's why our sages said it's better not to say any praise, rather than falling into that trap of ending your praises by saying something that is negative. However, in another place it says that it's a great mitzvah to praise your fellow man. Very important to